Hi, this is Steve Beaton, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Well, hello there, darts fans, and a very warm welcome to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. This is one of our bounce out episodes, our sort of short and sharp versions of the show, slightly reduced, but we thought we'd bring you a little bounce out this Sunday evening. It is Sunday evening that we are recording. It's not long, ladies and gentlemen, until the World Championships begin at Ali Pali, and we didn't think we could allow the Worlds to begin without catching up with you guys and also bringing in your favourite darts reporter, statistician, blogger, journalist, your friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me across Zoom this evening, it's Mr. Josh Gorton. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening, John. How are we?
I'm all good. I'm excited, mate. I'm excited. We're nearly there, aren't we? A few more days to go, Josh, and we're in the thick of the action.
Yep, 3 days to go as we record here live, and the World is back, Christmas is here, and the fans are back, more importantly, and they make the World Championship, so it should be a fantastic 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, absolutely buzzing for it. Before we go on to the darts, Josh, how are your colleagues at Sky this afternoon and this evening who work in the Formula One department? What sort of a day have they had?
Must be very tired, I think. No shortage of controversy there, but I was working today on social media, not on the F1. I was covering the football today, the Scottish football in the Premier League, but I know a couple of colleagues of mine were focusing just on the F1, and we expected drama and controversy, but probably not to the extent that we've seen it tonight. I've never seen anything like it, really.
Yeah, it's a madness. I'm a big Formula One fan. I've been watching it all weekend, and yeah, they couldn't have hoped for a better ending, if I'm honest. But listen, as I said, we are here to discuss the darts. Josh, you sent me a brief agenda earlier on, things we're going to discuss. We should also say, actually, it's just going to be the two of us this evening. Unfortunately, Neil not available this evening, but that's good. Me and Josh can hold the fort. That's not a problem. Yeah, Josh, just looking at the agenda you sent through to me, obviously the first thing we're going to have a chat, as you just mentioned there, we're going to have a preview of the World Darts Championship, aren't we? We
are, yeah. The draw was made a couple of weeks ago now, and the countdown's been on ever since then. We've got some fantastic matchups. I think the strength and depth in the sport is at its best, and that's illustrated with some of the ties we've got even in the first round, let alone the second round. So we're going to give you a bit of a rundown, give our predictions, and look ahead to the next 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, and what we'll do, Josh, we'll categorise some of it. So once we've sort of had a general rundown, we'll look at your, sort of standout first and second round ties. I think we're going to look at seeds to struggle. You're going to give us your surprise package, and then we're also going to have a look at final predictions, which can quite often be the nail in the coffin for us, can't it? If you get
nail in the coffin for the players that I back.
I was going to say, if you're backed by Josh Gorton, you're banging trouble. Josh, you could also give us an update on the odds, couldn't you? I suppose.
I can, yeah. I can take Neil's place in that respect. I'll have a look at the overall tournament odds, and I'm sure, with it being the World Championship, there'll be no shortage of special bets, 9 darters, 170s, that sort of thing.
Good. And no Josh's Dartistry podcast World Championship preview, Josh, would be complete without an interview with a player who's due to take part, but not just any old player, Josh. One of the most recognised faces on that stage.
Yeah, the bronze Adonis, Steve Beaton, is breaking a record at this year's World Championship, which we're going to expand on a little bit later on. But Steve has been in the headlines recently because he's got a certain player called Fallon Sherrock. I think we've heard of her, haven't we?
Once or twice.
That's a real glamour tie. But Steve's in really good spirits, just looking ahead to the tournament, reflecting on his season so far and looking to the future. He's 57 years old, but he's got no plans to retire just yet.
Good. We look forward to hearing from Steve. We've got a few news items to discuss near the end of the show as well, Josh.
We have, yeah. Unfortunately, a couple of players have been forced to pull out of the World Championships due to various reasons, which we'll cover later on. We've also got some news about the WDF World Championship, which will take place at Lakeside from January the 1st.
Good. Look forward to that. And as ever on the Josh's Dartistry podcast, whether it's a main show or a bounce out, we always like to finish with Josh's Twitter chatter. That's our Q&A section. Josh, I think you put the word out on social media earlier, and we did have one or two come in, didn't we?
Yeah, we got 2 or 3 questions, I believe, so we'll make sure they're answered at the end of the show.
Excellent stuff. Look forward to it. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the Josh's Dartistry podcast Bounce Out episode 11 World Championship preview.
Hi, this is Josh from Josh's Dartistry. Check out our website www.joshsdartistry.com for all the latest news, interviews and insight from the darting world. Do you want to get involved in the conversation? Then tweet us at Josh's Dartistry or message us on Facebook at Josh's Dartistry to have your say. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Gerwyn Price, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Well, there you hear the voice, the dulcet tones of Gerwyn Price, who Josh begins his defence of the world title on the opening night, doesn't he?
Yeah, as is World Championship tradition now, John, the defending champ always headlines the opening night, and it's a good way for him to kind of set his stall out and underline his credentials, but it also can be a bit of a banana skin because I think nobody really likes to play on the opening night of the World Championship. If you speak to players, they always like to see how the tournament progresses for a few days and then sort of dip their toe in, but it gives him the chance to secure his place in the 3rd round after Christmas. And I think Gerwyn, he's so experienced, he's got no fear about defending his title. We've seen him at the Grand Slam of Darts retain a title before, so it'll hold no fear for him. It's not a bad first game for Gerwyn, so you'd expect him to come through that. And I think he'll take some stopping this year at the World. We saw him win the Grand Slam of Darts last month. He's starting to find his form and his aggression back, and it'll take something special to stop him, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that opening night. Obviously, we get underway, Josh, on Wednesday evening, don't we? Richie Edhouse, obviously, versus Liao Ven. I mean, I fancy Richie to come through that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I've got nothing to base that on other than I probably know a little bit more about Richie than I do about Leo. But, we'll see what happens with them. A favourite of ours, favourite of mine and Neil's, we saw him on the Ali Pali stage a few years ago when we went and took the wife that night. Ricky Evans, Josh, takes on Nitin Kumar that night as well.
Indeed, yeah. Ricky Evans, the fastest player in world darts, a great character, a great player as well. But he has been struggling for a little bit of form recently, Ricky. But it's a good draw for Ricky. I'd expect him to come through that. And then we've got Adrian Lewis up against Matt Campbell, which is a fantastic tie because Matt Campbell is a very, very capable player. We've seen him playing on the online Darts Live League over the last couple of weeks, and he's been throwing some superb stuff. And the winner of that could play Gary Anderson in round 2. So you're looking at Adrian Lewis and Gary Anderson, who've contested 2 world finals in 2011 and 2016, potentially meeting in the last 64 of the tournament. I mean, it's just astonishing. Yeah, that is crazy. Josh, how long you say about Gerwyn, being the defending champion and it's tradition for him to defend? Has that always been the case, or is that when I say relatively new phenomenon, I don't mean in the last couple of years. I know it's been a thing longer than that, but do you know roughly how long that's been the case? It's a good question. I think definitely since I've been going, the last 6 or 7 years, it's always been the case. But I couldn't tell you whether that's been the case. I mean, it was in the 90s or early 2000s. I wouldn't know. I'd have to look back. But yeah, definitely the last 6 or 7 years at least. And it doesn't matter how prolific a champion you are. And let's be honest, Gerwyn Price at the moment is a prolific champion, a prolific darts player. But it's first night, Josh, isn't it? No one wants to go out on the first night, especially if you're the defending champion. And whilst I'm pretty confident, Gerwyn will probably get through fairly unscathed, there's always that little bit of jeopardy on first night, isn't there? There is, exactly. Like you said, you don't feel the tournament's really started until you've got that first win. But some of the players, if they see, 4 or 5 nights go down, they might feel the tournament started now, and they might be a little bit more relaxed coming into it. But there are those nerves, and because of the format, obviously Richie or Lee Howe will have won a game before playing Gerwyn Price. Now, I don't think that'll be a massive factor with Gerwyn because he's experienced, he's been there, he's seen it and done it. But it can be a factor because whoever wins that first round game will be coming into the game against Gerwyn with a win under their belt on that stage that night. So they'll have some confidence. So it will be interesting, but I expect Gerwyn to come through that comfortably and show his class. And as we move through the rest of the week, I know people say you get the lesser names at the start of the tournament. Of course you do. That's the way it is. But just looking through some of the sessions, Josh. I mean, we're still littered with some absolute darting household names on the Thursday afternoon. I mean, you could take us through the fixtures themselves, but on the Thursday afternoon, I'm looking at the likes of Steve Lennon, Scotty Mitchell, and then Daryl Gurney headlining the afternoon session. In the evening, we got Willie O'Connor, Ron Moulenkamp, as you mentioned, Gary Anderson potentially v Adrian Lewis in the second round. On the Friday, you got Joycey in there, Keane Barry, Watamina, Rataski. The names just keep coming and coming and coming, don't they? Yeah, the strength in depth is just absolutely superb. I mean, the way the PDC do it is they always have one seed per session in the early stages of the tournament. So if you've bought a ticket for either the afternoon or the evening, you're guaranteed to see one seeded player play. But to be fair, when you look at some of the names you've just picked out there, you wouldn't really know which are the seeds and which are not, because the quality there, you've got proven quality throughout. And I mean, I think one of the best sessions I'm looking at really could be the 20th, because you've got Raymond van Barneveld and James Wade on the same night. So if you bought a ticket for that one, you're in for a treat. Two of our favourites there, John.
And Luke Woodhouse and Rusty Jake Rodriguez that night as well.
Yeah, Rusty Jake. I mean, Luke Woodhouse is a very, very good player, and I think he had a really good run at the Worlds the other year. I think you were there, weren't you, John, when he beat Michael Smith?
I was there. Yeah, that's right.
And Rusty Jake is one of the most exciting players on the PDC circuit right now. I've tipped him as one to maybe watch in this tournament, because at the Grand Slam, he didn't win a game, but he played some really good darts and ran Mervyn King and Jonny Clayton rather close. So he's on the PDC circuit next year with a tour card, and he's one to watch, I think, Rusty Jake.
Just before we sort of dissect some of the games a bit more, Josh, let's talk a little bit more about some of the highlights that people are going to be looking forward to at Ali Pali. And not only do we look to Gerwyn Price as the current champion and how he's going to perform in the opening rounds, but we also look to former champions, don't you? And we won't be looking much further past the likes of, Peter Wright and Michael van Gerwen, will we?
Not at all, no. I mean, Peter Wright warmed up for the World Championship by winning the Players' Championship finals last month, John. I think it was almost destined for Peter to win that after I said he might go out in the second round in our previous podcast. Peter didn't thank me for that one, but he's got not a bad draw, Peter Wright, I've got to say. I think Ryan Meikle or 16-year-old Fabian Schmutzler from Germany, it could have been worse. Damon Hetta potentially in the third round. Damon's a quality player, but it could be a repeat of that Players' Championship finals against Ryan Searle in the last 16. I mean, Ryan's one of the players of 2021 so far, and I think anyone who follows the Pro Tour closely would have not been surprised to see Ryan reach the final in Minehead, because he's been throwing some wonderful stuff on the floor, and he's now starting to transfer that onto the TV stage. But Peter Wright will be hard to beat, Ali Pali. He's been there, seen it and done it. He won it in 2020, so he's defending his prize money from winning that, the £500,000. So with that comes a sense of pressure, because that is an enormous amount of money to be knocked off his ranking potentially. So there's pressure on Peter Wright, but he should be confident coming into it. And you've mentioned Michael van Gerwen there, John. I've tipped him to have a really good run here, Michael, but he is in a real nightmare section of the draw, because potentially Chris Dobey in the third round, and Chris has been putting some huge averages in on the circuit recently. He's on the same side of the draw also as the likes of Dave Chisnell, Luke Humphreys, Gary Anderson, Ian White, Rob Cross, Darryl Gurney, and you've also got the likes of Adrian Lewis and Barney as the non-seeds in that same quarter. So whoever comes through that bottom quarter of the draw will have really earned their money there.
And just looking away from sort of like, the sort of top five players, Josh, that, are always joshing for that top position come the end of the tournament, we are also this year absolutely littered with players who have picked up, trophy and tournament success this year, right from, European Tour events and tournaments on the floor and, majors. And, it's not this year been the same two or three people this year, is it? There are so many people who are coming into this tournament, this big tournament, to finish off the year on the back of real 2021 success, aren't they?
Absolutely. There's been no real dominant figure. Maybe Jonny Clayton would fit that bill. He's won 4 majors this year. It's been an outstanding year for the Ferret, who's the 8th seed of this year's World Championship. It'll be interesting to see how Jonny fares, though, because he's never progressed beyond the last 32 here. This is a different Jonny Clayton. We know that. And he's flying right now. He's full of confidence. Maybe not at his best at the Grand Slam or the Players' Championships, but Jonny will be a really tough opponent to beat. And he could meet Gerwyn Price in the quarterfinals. What a tie that would be. But yeah, you're right. There's so many players who've been prolific on the floor, but the World Championship is a different entity altogether, isn't it? I think the pressure of being on that Ali Pali stage, the prestige, there haven't been many new world champions over the last 20 years, for example. So we've seen so many different winners of Pro Tour events and European Tour events over the last 18 months, but I still cannot see past, say, 4 or 5 players for this year's world title. I just think there's a different pressure. And that's why I don't think you see many new world champions over the last 15, 20 years. Yes, mainly because Phil Taylor's won most of them, but it is so hard to win. It really is. And I really can't see past the big three of Van Gerwen, Price, Wright, or maybe Jonny Clayton. I think the winner comes from one of those four.
Okay, just a couple of other highlights that I want to touch on, Josh. I think we just need to give Raymond van Barneveld a little bit more due respect. Obviously, you've already mentioned him taking on Monday the 20th in the evening in his round one match, taking on Lawrence Largan, obviously. But again, all part of the sensational fairy tale return, isn't it, for Raymond heading back to Ali Pali this year?
It certainly is. When he won his tour card back in February, he said his only real target was just to make the World Championship. He's obviously made a couple of other TV events and performed well without really getting any major results. But he's got a tough game in Lawrence Largan. He's not won a game, Lawrence, at the World Championship before, but he's played some really good stuff and been close to winning games. And we've seen him on the PDC Asian Tour throw some really top quality stuff. He's hit 9 darters before. So he's an interesting character. He's quite an enigmatic character, I'd say. So Barney will need to be on his toes, but I would expect him to come through that, even if he does drop a set or two. But could potentially set up a second round tie against Rob Cross, which is another blockbuster game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two former world champions. And Rob Cross, I think if you'd have said to Barney 3 or 4 months ago, you'd be playing Rob Cross in the second round potentially, he'd have said, that's quite a good draw. I'm not sure I'll be saying that now, because this is a different Rob Cross. Since his European Championship win, he's getting back to the sort of form we saw him in when he won the Worlds. Maybe not quite there, but certainly the form where he was in 2019, winning the match play and the European Championships there. So a really tough game that will be for Raymond if he were to overcome Lawrence Largan.
And Josh, we mentioned there how lucky you'd be if you were a ticket holder to the Monday night session with those games, including Wadey and Barney. But I'm looking at the day before, mate. Sunday night, 7 o'clock.
Yes.
We've got Martin Clearmacher and John Michael, very good players themselves. Hempel and Schindler, who are become household names recently.
That's an absolute belter of a game. Yeah,
that's a belter. You've got Clayton, obviously, versus the winner of Barry and Lamb, as we've already mentioned. But wow, what an absolute diamond of a game we've got on that Sunday night. Steve Beaton takes on Fallon Sherrock, Josh. I mean, it don't bear thinking about at the moment, does it?
It really doesn't. It's a fantastic tie, and I think it's a good tie for both players. I think Steve's not been in the best of form over the last 18 months. He's quite open and honest in that. Mm-hmm. He's not got the results he'd have liked. I think the sort of Super Series and the blocks of events haven't really suited Steve's game, really. But Fallon is a winnable game for him. But also for Fallon, it's a winnable game for her. And I think with Steve Beaton, he's a gentleman of the game. There'll be no tactics. He's not going to slow her down. There's going to be no gamesmanship. It's just going to be 2 top quality players getting up on that stage and trying to produce their best darts. It'll be different for Steve, though, because he's such a popular player. He's a legend of the game. I don't think I've heard anyone ever boo Steve Beaton. But that could be a factor, the crowd in that game. I'd like to think they wouldn't boo Steve Beaton. I'd like to think the crowd
How
would
can
have
you
a bit more
boo Steve?
respect.
How can you boo Steve Beaton? That's sacrilege.
You shouldn't. But people who maybe don't follow the darts, you do get the odd fan at Ali Pali who are there for the sort of Christmas party. They're not maybe the avid watchers. I think everyone knows Fallon Sherrock and the hype surrounding Fallon. Everyone will be supporting her, really. So if it's a close match, the crowd will become embroiled, and it could be a factor for Steve. But he's so experienced, I don't think it will really affect him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be fazed by the occasion. We've seen some players wilt a little bit against Fallon, maybe because of the occasion, because of the crowd. I don't think that'll be a factor for Steve. I think if he loses, it'll be because he's not played well enough, or Fallon's played just superbly well.
And do you, I mean, just looking forward to who they play, Kim Hybrex, obviously lies in wait for whoever wins that one in round 2, and Kim will certainly be formidable opposition, whether that's Beaton or Sherrock that go through to round 2, Josh.
Yeah, Kim will certainly be a formidable opponent for, I think, anyone who wins that game. I mean, he's 32nd seed, but he's not playing like the world number 32 at the moment, Kim Hybrex. He's playing some really, really good stuff. He's had a resurgence over the last 4 or 5 months. He seems to have got his action back, his confidence and his swagger back. I think if you were to play Fallon Sherrock, that'd be a really interesting tie, because Kim is no stranger to giving it the big one in front of the crowd. He's played the pantomime villain a few times, and I think he'd almost relish that role a little bit. Yeah. But Fallon, she will fancy her chances. She's been playing so well. And the Grand Slam, I think she went to another level in that game against Peter Wright over such a long format. Yeah. But I think we're all looking a little bit ahead. It may not happen, but what an occasion it would be if in the 3rd round she was to play the world number 1 Gerwyn Price. That would be box office, wouldn't it?
I think the roof would absolutely come off. That would be the hottest ticket in town, Josh. I think those tickets, if anyone was willing to let them go, and we don't advocate selling tickets on the black market, but they'd be down for crazy money.
I mean, Gerwyn, to be fair, it'll be another day for Gerwyn. He gets booed every game, doesn't he? So I don't think he'd be particularly fazed by it.
No.
But I mean, what an opportunity for Fallon it would be. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Fallon for the Premier League, and who knows? Who knows? I think her performance here will influence that decision. But if she were to play Gerwyn Price and she were to beat Gerwyn Price, then I think she can already start booking a ticket for the Premier League Roadshow. But there's a long way to go before that. And Steve Beaton, listen, he's not had the best of records at Ali Pali over the last few years, apart from his performance 2 years ago. But he's a formidable opponent, Steve. He's a classy operator. And it'll be no surprise if he were to win that game. So, yeah, that's one of these standout first-round ties, without question.
Yeah, absolutely mouthwatering. We're very much looking forward to that. Josh, we're not going to go through everything, but also just jumping out on me here on the Wednesday evening on the 22nd. Again, absolutely littered with some darting royalty. Aspinall versus the winner of Mernon and Lim. Now, we're all Paul Lim fans in here, aren't we? Back in Paul. Actually, does Beaton has the most appearances, right? He has more than Lim. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Lim has not played every single year of the World Championship. He made his debut 40 years ago, Paul Lim, now at the BDO. But Steve Beaton's played 31 in a row, which is just remarkable. Phil Taylor and now Barney, this will be his 29th. So Phil Taylor and Barney on 29. John Lowe's 28, I believe. Then there's a host of players, Mervyn King being one of them, Martin Adams and Paul Lim, all on 26. So still remarkable longevity from the three of them.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the first night we get a glimpse at Nathan Aspinall playing the winner of that game. We've also got some crackers as well there, Josh, that evening. Dirk van Duivenbode taking on the winner of Watamina or Coltsoff. Kim Hybrex, obviously we've already mentioned, facing the winner of Steve Beaton and Fallon Sherrock. But also that's when Simon Whitlock drops into the competition, taking on the winner of Clearmarker or Michael. Another packed evening, Josh.
Absolutely. And I think Whitlock's gone under the radar a little bit this year. He's not played particularly well. He's still in the world's top 20, but he had a really good year last year on the TV stage. So he's got a lot of money to defend. So if he doesn't have a good Worlds, he could be a cause for concern for the Wizards in 2022. So big pressure on him to have a good run here. Okay, well, if you want to take a look at the fixtures, they are available on the PDC website if you want to sort of plan your viewing. Obviously, you've got the afternoon sessions and the evening sessions to look forward to. But get onto the PDC website, or if you've got the PDC app, they will all be on there, and you can follow them. You can obviously follow all the action on Josh's website, on Josh's Twitter page as well. I'm sure he'll be putting loads of social media content out as we go through the tournament. And Josh, I'm assuming you'll also be working for Sky. Will you blogging and reporting during the tournament? I will be, yeah. Really lucky to be there for the majority of the tournament, I think. I'm not going to be there on the opening night. I'm at Arsenal West Ham that night, so...
Boom.
Yeah, I think you'll want both teams to lose that one, won't you, John?
Yes, please.
But no, I think I'm working, every day apart from 3 or 4 days, so I'm going to be there for the majority of it, obviously covering the games, blogging the games, and also getting some reaction from the players and also some of the Sky commentary team there. So going to be a busy 3 weeks, but really looking forward to it. I've been working from home now since the pandemic began, so the chance to get out of the house and be at Ali Pali reporting on live sport is just a really exciting opportunity for me.
Absolutely. Okay, Josh, just before we move away from the fixtures themselves and turn our attention to some odds, as I mentioned at the top of the show, going to give you 4 different categories here, and I want you to pick out some games and some players. So the first thing I'm looking for is your standout first round tie.
There's a few, really. I've mentioned Steve Beaton against Fallon Sherrock. That's just an absolute glamour tie. There's Adrian Lewis against Matt Campbell, which is another one that really appeals to me. But I think Florian Hempel against Martin Schindler. It's an all-German affair. We always get a really good German contingent down at Ali Pali. They absolutely love their darts.
Yeah.
And we've seen Martin Schindler play some quality stuff since regaining his PDC Tour card. But Florian Hempel's a really, really interesting one. He's a former handball goalkeeper who won his tour card at the start of the year, missed a large quantity of the opening Pro Tour events, but still did enough to get his place via the Pro Tour Order of Merit. He has some really top averages on the Pro Tour, and he beat Peter Wright at the European Championship. So he's proven he's got the quality, and I think that could be a really, really brilliant encounter. And the winner of that plays the number 5 seed, Dimitri van den Berg, in the second round. So whoever comes through that, Dimitri's got his work cut out in the second round.
Talking to second round ties, Josh, what stands out for you for round 2 when the bigger seeds drop in?
It's all hypothetical, isn't it? Because I think the two games that I'm going to pick are dependent on who wins the first round game. But the obvious, really, Adrian Lewis against Gary Anderson, if Adrian were to come through his game, we don't need to really describe anymore. The repeat of 2 world finals in the last 64, it's just ludicrous, isn't it? And then, of course, Rob Cross, the 2018 winner, could play Raymond van Barneveld, the 5-time world champ, returning to the Ali Pali stage. So they're the two that really do stand out for me.
Josh, in recent years, we've seen some lesser known players make a real run and sort of, get to quarter-final matches where they weren't necessarily always fancied to. Give me your surprise package this year. Somebody you think's probably going to upset the odds a little bit and go a little bit further than perhaps people thought.
I wouldn't really call this a surprise, John, because I think he's number 13 in the world. But I think Joe Cullen's got a wonderful chance of reaching the semi-finals this year. He's in the very open second quarter with the likes of Wade, Vandenberg, Ratajski. I think Wade's got a great chance as well. But Wade and Cullen could meet in the last 16. And I just think Cullen's scoring power could hold the edge there. And we saw him, we all remember that game against Van Gerwen at last year's Worlds. It was behind closed doors, but it deserves an audience, didn't it? It was just an amazing game of darts.
Yeah.
He was so close, Cullen. That could have been his real major breakthrough. But he's made, again, really good strides in 2021. I think Cullen's going to have a great chance of making the semi. So he's one. Also, watch out for Daryl Gurney, number 22 seed. Had a really good performance in Minehead, got to the quarterfinals, thrown with real purpose and confidence again. So Daryl's a 2-time major winner. He knows how to get the job done. So don't write him off either in that bottom quarter. Okay,
good. Let's flip it on its head. Let's move away from players we think might, excel. Josh, talk to me about some seeds that you think might struggle a little bit. Now, we don't want to put the curse on anyone. We don't want to put the mockers on. But do you think there's any seeded players out there that might struggle?
I don't like to kick a man when he's down as such. But
you put it in the itinerary, not me. So
I did, yeah. No, I'll take full responsibility, John. Don't worry. But you can't look past Glenn Durrant as a seed to struggle. Number 24 seed, Glenn. I watched him give an interview to Phil Barr from Online Darts this morning. I think it went up. It was really, really positive, Glenn. He said he feels like he's found something again in his game, and he's nowhere near back, but he feels a lot more positive than he did, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I hope we see an improved showing from Glenn, but we've not seen him since he played on the Pro Tour a couple of months ago now. So he's got either William O'Connor or the American Danny Lauby. So that's going to be a tough game for Glenn. I think Chizzy could struggle as well, We saw him get to the semi-finals last year, beating Van Gerwen. He could have Darius Labanauskas. And I think Darius is such a wily competitor. He's so solid. Yeah. And over this set format, a short format, I could see him coming a cropper in that one as well. And Mensur Suljovic, he could have Alan Suter, who I think will beat Diogo Portela. And Mensur, since losing to Fallon at the Grand Slam, he was horrendous at the Players' Championship finals. I think he had a 75 average or something like that against Callum Ridds. Yeah. We saw Mensur, when he lost to Fallon last time at the Worlds, he sort of fell off a cliff for 12 months. If he does the same here, I think he loses to Alan Suter. So they're the three that stand out. But Gary Anderson, he needs to watch himself against Adrian Lewis. I've mentioned Dimitri Vandenberg could have a tough game against Florian Hempel or Martin Schindler. And of course, Rob Cross, if he does play Barney, over a short format, best of 5 sets, he could be in danger. But I think the three I've mentioned there, Durrant, Chisnell and Suljovic, they're the three that jump out to me. Okay, let's go all the way. Let's fast forward to the end of the tournament, Josh. Give me your final predictions. I've tipped him unsuccessfully, I might add, for the last 3 tournaments, but I'm not going to veer away from him now. I'm going to say Michael van Gerwen wins his 4th world title. He's not won a major this year, which is almost unfathomable when you think his success over the past 4 or 5 years. But his performances and his averages over the last 4 or 5 months indicate that he is playing world-class darts. He's faltering a little bit at the latter stages of events. I think he might find his mojo here, and I think he beats Jonny Clayton, the ferret, in the final. Okay, well, that'll be interesting to have a look at, Josh, when we get the odds out in a minute and see what we can get on that. My final predictions, wow. I mean, it's very, very difficult to look past a Gerwyn Price or a Michael van Gerwen. That's a bit boring though, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Who do I think has played really well? I mean, Clayton is a real interesting one for me. Yeah. Coming off the back of everything that he's done this year, some absolutely fantastic success. He's a real
he garners the support of the crowd now as well. You know, he's not one of these players that's been, you know, out in the sort of lower echelons for a long time now. He's firmly come in from the cold, hasn't he, and made himself a household name. So, you know, if he can get firing, I can see, and I put a big emphasis on the crowd support as well, and having the crowds back this year I think is going to be massive, as it will be when people are booing Gerwyn Price, as it will be when they're cheering Fallon Sherrock. I think that's going to play a real big part. So a Clayton I can see making his way to the final. It'd be very difficult for me to back against a Michael van Gerwen or a Gerwyn Price, depending on, you know better about how the draw sits than me. But
Gerwyn's on the same side as Jonny, but Michael van Gerwen's on the same side as Peter Wright.
Right, okay, so I would probably go Michael van Gerwen versus Jonny Clayton in the final.
Same as me.
Would be my pick, with an outside bet on James Wade, of course.
Of course.
Because I can't leave James out. Okay, Josh, as I mentioned, we're going to have another quick look at the odds. Neil normally brings us the odds section, but obviously shout out to Neil, but he can't be with us this evening. But I'm sure you and I can muddle through as we get an update. This is What Are the Odds?
Cool, what are the odds?
Okie dokie. Josh, give us an update. How are things looking with just a few days to go?
Okie doke, John. Well, I'm bringing these odds to you via Sky Bet.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we think the favourite is to win the Sid Waddell Trophy in January?
I think it still has to be Gerwyn Price.
Correct. He is the slight favourite at 10-3.
Okay.
To Gerwyn Price, 10-3 to retain his World Championship title. Michael van Gerwen, second favourite at 9-2 to win a fourth World Championship crown. We've got the 2020 champion, Peter Wright, is 13-2. And Jonny Clayton, going for his fifth major title of 2021, is 7-1. So we're all four there are sort of, you know, respectable odds. And we've got quite a gap. Dimitri van den Berg, 18-1, fifth favourite. Then we've got the likes of Jose de Souza and Michael Smith, 22-1. Rob Cross, a 2018 winner, 25-1. Your man, James Wade, 28th with Nathan Aspinall. Gary Anderson, 40-1. You can't have Gary Anderson at 40-1 in the World Championship, can you? And then looking a bit further down at some other high-profile names, Adrian Lewis, two-time world champ, 150-1 on Adrian Lewis. Raymond van Barneveld, the five-time world champ, returning to the Ali Pali stage for his 29th World Championship appearance, is 200-1 on Barney. I might have a quid on that, John.
Yeah, there we go.
And where is Fallon Sherrock? I'm looking down the list. She's 150-1.
150. It's insane the amount of former world champions we've got there that are on very, very, very big odds, isn't it?
It really is. And again, it's testament to the strength in depth in the PDC, but I think it's also indicative of the draws they've got, because Adrian Lewis could be up against Gary Anderson in his first round match. You'd expect Gary to probably win that. And the same with Barney. You'd have a fighting chance if he was to win his first round match, but Rob Cross, you still make him the favourite to win that. So if they were to come through those games and reach round 3, I'm sure you'd see Lewis and Barney's odds plummet. But until that stage, I think those odds are fair enough. But so much quality. Glenn Durrant as well, former Premier League champion, 3-time Lakeside winner, 250-1.
Mm-hmm.
I think 12 months ago it would have been about 25-1. So I think that just shows how Glenn's form has slipped dramatically.
I'll give you a little outside tip, Josh. Maybe not to win the tournament, maybe not even to win the semi-final, but to go on a bit of a run. Talk to me about Stephen Bunting. I fancy him to get to a quarter, if not a semi.
Stephen Bunting is 100-1. He got to the semi-finals last year, of course, lost in an absolute thriller against Gerwyn Price.
Yeah.
He's been unlucky at the recent tournaments, at the Grand Slam and the Players' Champs. He played so well, but just lost to a combination of inspired opposition and a little bit of bad luck. But Stephen Bunting, number 16 seed, could play Ross Smith or Jeff Smith in his opener. That's another really tough game.
Mm-hmm.
And as the 16th seed, he could meet Gerwyn Price, John, in the last 16.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's maybe why he's 100-1. But yeah, the Bullet is playing really, really top stuff at the moment. And I think that could be a cracking game if he were to play Gerwyn in the last 16. Yeah,
33-1 I know, just to get to the final though, even though he's 100 to win the thing. But 33s to get to the final. That's not a bad shout at all. Josh, any more odds for us? Have we got anything like outside of sort of, unless there's any other outrights you want to mention, but if not, we could look at some other markets as well.
A few specials here, John.
Mm-hmm.
A few on Fallon Sherrock. to start off with. Fallon Sherrock to reach round 3, so that means she'll be beating Steve Beaton and Kim Hybrex.
Yeah.
5-2.
Okay.
Fallon to hit a 170 in the tournament. She hit a 170, of course, at the Grand Slam.
Yes, she did.
10-1. Not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Fallon Sherrock to hit a 9-dart finish, 33-1. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
We've got a few other across the bet specials here. We've got Peter Wright to win the tournament, Michael Van Gerwen to reach the semi-finals, and Marcus Smith to reach the quarters. That's an interesting one. 33-1.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look. 7 170s in the tournament. Do we fancy that? We saw a lot of the Players' Championship finals.
Yeah.
4-1 for 7 170s. That's a good bet, I think.
I think it's very good.
Given the amount of games and the quality we've got on show, that's a very, very good bet.
I'll tell you what else is good value there, Josh. The two finalists that you and I mentioned as a possibility, Michael Van Gerwen v Jonny Clayton, for both of them to make the final, 14-1.
That's superb odds. Really, I mean, like I say, Michael Van Gerwen is the second favourite with the bookies. So he's favoured to come through his half, Michael. And Jonny Clayton, if he was to beat Gerwyn Price, will be the favourite to come through his. So we're not writing off anyone, but I think they're two of the Form 4, let's say, in the world of darts. But Jonny has held the edge over Michael in a lot of games over the last 24 months, for example. Johnny's got a winning head-to-head record in that period against Michael. So that'll hold no fear for the ferret.
Josh, any updates on 9-darters?
Well, I'm on Sky Bet. I can't actually see any odds for a 9-darter, but there are odds for an individual player to hit a 9-darter.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Van Gerwen is a favourite in that respect. We've seen him hit 17 perfect darts there before. He's 6-1. Gerwyn Price, 8-1. Peter Wright, 10-1. Gary Anderson, we've seen him hit a 9-darter at the Worlds. He's 16-1.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got James Wade, 16-1. Your man, John. James Wade hit a 9-darter at this event 12 months ago against Stephen Bunting. So if you fancy the machine to repeat the feat on this occasion, good odds there. Dimitri van den Berg, he's hit a televised 9-darter, 12-1. Jonny Clayton, 12-1. So some good value for you there if you fancy a punt on the 9-darter.
Excellent stuff. Okay, Josh, any more odds for us?
No, that's all, I think, John.
Lovely job, thank you.
Cool, what are the odds?
Hi, this is Neil from the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Thanks for checking out the show, which you can download at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and all your favourite podcast providers. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel, Josh's Dartistry Darts Podcast. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, Josh, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you managed to catch up with the bronzed Adonis, Steve Beaton, before he takes to the Ali Pali stage.
I did indeed, yeah. As we mentioned earlier, Steve Beaton making history this year with his 31st consecutive World Championship appearance, a remarkable record. And Steve was in really, really good form with me. He discussed the secret to his longevity, his belief about trying to win another major, and of course the prospect of facing Fallon Sherrock at Ali Pali.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Right, guys, I'm delighted here to be joined by the legendary Steve Beaton. Steve, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Brilliant stuff. It's less than a week to go now, Steve, until this year's World Championship kicks off. Just how excited are you to be back at the Alexandra Palace?
I'm looking forward to it, really. Fingers crossed we're going to have a full crowd there, and it's going to be. It'd be nice to get back there. I mean, it's been a year now, so last year was a bit quieter. I didn't like it so much last year. There was only 300 or 400 people in there, but this year, fingers crossed, there'll be 3,000 or 4,000, so they'll all be singing and shouting.
And this will be your record 31st World Championship appearance, Steve. You're 2 ahead of Phil Taylor and Raymond van Barneveld in that regard. So just how proud are you of that record?
Oh yeah, I can't believe it really, and never to miss one either. I've just been fortunate. Through injuries and things like that. Touch wood, I've been lucky. But it's great to be back again and trying again. Although I've only won it the once, but I've been close earlier on. But as time goes by, I'm finding it harder now.
What do you put your longevity down to, Steve? Is it your love of the game, or is there a secret we don't know about?
Oh yeah, I've always tried to keep the game simple, really, and try not to do too much with me throwing that lot. It's so easy just to start changing things around when things go wrong. But I've always just tried to keep the same consistent throw, really. It's slightly changed over the years, I suppose, because obviously you get bad backs and that lot. You can't lean to forward as much, things like that. But generally, it hasn't changed much at all.
And there's so many great youngsters coming through now, Steve, but the old guard are still going strong. You've got yourself, Mervyn King, Gary Anderson, Barney's back, and even Paul Lim at the age of 67. I mean, in comparison to Paul, you're still a spring chicken, aren't you?
I suppose I am, yeah, good old Paul. Yeah, he keeps trying every year. I mean, he does a lot more soft tip than the normal darts that we do. But, yeah, I mean, he loves the game that much, he'll carry on playing till he can't. But, yeah, you've got to have a passion for the sport, and, I've always loved the game, and, it's great to still be competing.
How would you reflect on the last 12 months on the hockey for you? You've had a couple of quarterfinals on the Pro Tour, but I suppose by your high standards, it's not been probably the best year of your career, has it?
No, the last 2 years really, due to COVID. My routine usually is exhibitions that I class them as my practice, really. And obviously with the lockdown, we haven't been able to go to pubs and things like that. Starting again now, just gradually. But yeah, my main practice was doing an exhibition, then going to a tournament, but like lack of practice, really. I mean, I'm not one for standing at the board on my own all day long. Half an hour, and that's me done, really. But yeah, I'm hopefully looking now towards next year, and hopefully everything getting back to normal, and give it a good run next year again.
As I mentioned, you've got to a couple of quarterfinals this year. You've had some really good performances on tour, beating some of the top players in the world. So do you still believe you've got another big title in you, Steve?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I wouldn't be competing if I didn't think I could win a game. It's whether I can, keep that consistency going really all the way through. But generally, me exhibitions and that lot, I play well in them. And I mean, it's just whether I think it comes down to the odd double sometimes, the swing of the game. You miss a double that can cost you, and the standards these days are getting higher and higher, and you've just got to. You've got to just keep trying and improving, really.
Looking ahead now to the World Championship, Steve, you're up against a certain Fallon Sherrock in round one. What was your reaction when your good friend Wayne Mardle picked Fallon out of the hat?
Well, to be honest, it was a 16-1 chance that I was going to get either her or Lisa, yeah. And so it wasn't too much of a shock to get her, actually. But yeah, I mean, the ladies have been playing well. Fallon definitely has been playing awesome in front of the cameras. She seems to thrive on that. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that she's not going to be over the 100 average. But no, I've got to treat her as an opponent, and like any other player, and just go up there and play my game. And I've played Lisa a few times, and so it's not it's not the first time. But yeah, it depends on the crowd as well, whether they be booing and hissing and all that lot. But hopefully there'll be a good crowd and they'll enjoy the game.
Do you think your experience could be a big factor? Because we've seen some players against Fallon maybe wilt a little bit under the pressure, but you've been there, seen it and done it, so you won't be fazed by that occasion, will you?
No. Like I said, you've got to treat her as an opponent and play your own game. If she plays well, then, I'm going to be under pressure all the way. But just depends on the day and how the game goes. And I've been a very slow starter lately. I'm going to have to improve on that. I'm going to have to get away quicker and... get that first set under my belt. But, yeah, it's going to be a good game. And, like I say, I'm looking forward to it. The crowd back and everything. It's going to be really exciting.
So you mentioned the crowd there, Steve. We know you're one of the most popular players in world darts, but what are you expecting when it comes up against Fallon? Are you expecting a little bit of hostile reception, or...?
Yeah, because a lot of the crowd that are there, sometimes have only been the first time they've been there, and they're all on a Christmas party, most of them. So a lot of them will probably only just see a man and a woman up there. They might not even know who I am or Fallon is, Yeah. And it just depends on what sort of a crowd you've got, really. They weren't very good against Ted and Menza last time she was up there, but. I'll just have to see how he goes. If I need some earplugs, I'll have to find some earplugs off somebody. I'll have to buy Merv or something.
Yeah, Merv King, he'll have plenty.
But no, I'm not planning on putting earplugs in. But yeah, just like I say, fingers crossed the crowd will be good.
And if you get past Fallon in round one, Steve, it'll be Kim Huybrechts in round two. And there's the potential of a game against Gerwyn Price, the world number one, in the third round. I mean, I know we're looking ahead, but they're the sort of games you thrive on, aren't they? Testing yourself against the world's best.
Yeah. I mean, Kim's been playing really well this year. He's got himself back up there now, and obviously Gez, he's always going to be there. So it's a tough draw, actually. Tough after the draw, but there's no easy draws in the world, so you just got to take every game as it comes. But I'm not looking forward to the second game yet. I was one game at a time, but it'd be nice to get to the last few.
No, of course. And I was doing a little bit of research, and we all know you're known as a Bronze Adonis. It's one of the most famous nicknames in the sport, but I'm told that you used to be called Magnum PI. Is that correct?
I've had a few things, yeah. I mean, the Bronze Adonis, obviously, the youngsters must look at me now and think, well, you don't look much of a Bronze Adonis.
You mean I get away this year, Steve? That's why.
But, then somebody said I look like the Magnum, Tom Selleck. That sort of come onto the scene again, but then I sort of went back to the Bronze Adonis again, and it's a great name, but it's more for a younger person, I think. But it's one of them you can't really change. So I've just got to hope the youngsters bear with me, really. No,
we certainly do. We certainly do. But we know you're a former Lakeside champion, but you've played in every World Championship at Ali Pali, Steve. Have you got a standout moment from Ali Pali, a certain game or a certain tournament for you?
No, not really. As the years ago, I've always been fighting to get to the finals and the semis and that lot. It's always been hard work at Ali Pali. I mean, when I used to play in the beginning, we never used to start the tournament until January. And I used to like having a holiday first, have a bit of a break, and then coming back for the darts. But the darts seem to start that early now. It's not very often you have a nice Christmas because you're usually out before Christmas Day. So I haven't got many good memories of Ali Pali, but as a venue, I think it's absolutely brilliant. To have that many people in there, 3,000 or 4,000 people, a crowd like that. It's that's what you play for, is the buzz. It's great to be still, like I say, still competing in front of a big crowd like that.
Just got a couple of questions now sent in from some of the listeners, Steve. Spaniel Racing has asked about your game against Fallon Sherrock, and he said, how are you approaching the game against Fallon? Are you nervous or extra conscious about the energy that surrounds her?
Well, you've got to be silly not to see what's going to be going on. I'm on prime time on a Sunday evening, and it's Sky's going to be all over it. But that's why I play the game, is to be in the limelight. So I'm more, like I say, I'm going to treat it as just an opponent, and fingers crossed I come through the end.
Matt has asked, how long do you plan on playing for, Steve?
Well, that's a funny question, isn't it? I mean, I think next year I'll see how it goes next year. If I keep slipping down, and then I'm going to start thinking about it. I think when I start spending more money than I'm bringing in, then I'll start thinking about another career.
That sounds sensible. But Woody Rudd's asked a couple. He said, if you were to win the World Championship and the £500,000 prize money, what would be your first big purchase?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably a place abroad. I think I'd like to have somewhere abroad. I suppose that'd be nice. Nice place abroad.
That sounds good. And he's also asked, what player or players from the new generation? He's asked, so which players under the age of, say, 24, do you think can go on and do great things in the sport?
I think the youth now are tremendous. What they've got ahead of them. The tournaments they've got. It's a great platform for them now to come through well. I mean, there's a few that have just come through, but obviously they're not under the 24. They're Ted just won the youth, and
of course.
But I mean, I don't know a lot of the youth ones because obviously they're on the other side. But so far, what's come through, they're going to be the future. But I was doing an interview the other day, and we were talking about who they think are going to win the Worlds, and I said it could be 8 or 10 different people.
Yeah.
This year, because I think the standard this year is absolutely unbelievable. So you never know; it might be one of the youngsters, but
could be you though, Steve. Could be you.
Well, obviously, I'm going in there thinking it's me. I didn't want to say that, but.
But no, listen, Steve. It's been brilliant to chat to you this morning. Thanks very much for your time, and wish you all the very best for the World Championship.
Oh, thanks, Josh. That's great. Cheers, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. Take care, mate.
And you. Cheers, man.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Well, there you go. Josh's interview with Steve Beaton, and Josh, Steve's not turning up just for just to wave at crowds this year, is he? He's going in there. He knows he's got a tough game, but he's in it to win it.
Absolutely, I think that's what He's a former world champion. Yes, it was a long time ago now, 1996. But Steve is a winner. He wants to win, and I think he enjoys the game. And he loves the game. I think that's reflected in the fact that he's been playing for so long. But Steve doesn't need the money, for example. He's here because he loves the game. And he wants to try and win. I think he alluded to the fact that if he does slip down the rankings, and he will have to consider his future. But at the moment, he's still in and around. He slipped out the top 32, but he's still firmly in the top 64.
Yeah.
Still very competitive on the tour. Yes, he hasn't had a particularly good year, but he's got to a couple of Pro Tour quarterfinals. He's still more than capable, Steve, on any given day of beating any player in the world. And while he's still capable of doing that, I think there'll be no reason why he's going to hang up his arrow, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Steve back. He had a poor World Championship last year, and he'll be desperate to try and make amends against Fallon.
And as you say, Josh, he still believes he can crack on, but he's very specific there about he can still win another major title.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen him threaten too much over the last couple of years. I think he's 57 years old now, Steve, and he keeps himself in very good shape. But It's a grueling tour. And a lot of the tournaments, I think when you've got multiple games in a day, it's very taxing for a lot of the players. So that doesn't work in Steve's favour. And I think he alluded to it as, again there, consistency has been his downfall. We know he can beat anyone. He can beat Gerwyn Price, MVG, Peter Wright, anybody when he's playing at his best, Steve. He's got such a liquid action that's held him in such good stead for so many years now. Consistency is his downfall, but you've got to have the belief, haven't you? Because if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you? Yeah,
absolutely. And regardless, Josh, of how he performs in the Worlds this year in his game against Fallon, and if he progresses through to round two, or even, for the rest of the season and looking to pick up that next major title, you have to take your hat off, don't you, to a world record 31 appearances at the World Championships. It's incredible numbers, isn't it? And I know there's one or two that are just a couple behind him, but to be out there with that 31 appearances, that's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, when you look at the company he's in and the company he's actually he's beaten in that respect. I mean, beaten, there's a pun there, wasn't it? No, it's a remarkable achievement, and Steve's a very humble character. He's not one to boast about it, but it's a record he should be, and I think he is very proud of, because the quality in the game now is at an all-time high. So for Steve to still be qualifying for this event is an achievement in itself. So he should be very proud of himself. He's a wonderful player, but also a wonderful ambassador for the sport as well. A real gentleman. Nobody's got a bad word to say about Steve Beaton. And let's hope we can see him play on the Ali Pali stage for many more years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. We wish Steve all the best for his upcoming match against Fallon and for the remainder of the tournament. And of course, thanks, Steve, for taking the time and coming to speak to Josh on the Josh's Dartistry podcast. You're always welcome on, buddy. And it was great to hear from you.
And you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
You're listening to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook, the Josh's Dartistry page. You can also follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. And you can also go to our website, www.joshisdartistry.com, for all the latest news, blogs and information on the world of darts. Don't forget you can also call us and leave us a message on our voicemail box. That's 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329. Call our voicemail box, leave us a message, leave us a question, and we may play it on the show. Now back to the show.
Hi, this is Jonny Clayton, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, let's look at some news articles now that are sort of circulating a few days before we move on to Ali Pali. This is In the News. News. Okay, this is our In the News World Championship special. Josh, first story you're going to bring us, sad news. Unfortunately, we've lost a couple of players, haven't we?
We have, yeah. South Africa's Charles Losper, who was due to return here after a long hiatus, has been forced to pull out due to I believe, visa issues. And we've also lost Jean Francisco Rodriguez, who has tested positive for COVID-19. So they've both had to pull out, which is a real shame for them because the showpiece event of the year, valuable prize money. I'm really, really gutted for both of them. But they've been replaced by Belgium's Mike de Decker and Australia's Gordon Macers. So, like I say, a real shame for those two, but also a real opportunity now for Mike and Gordon to stake their claim and capitalise on their second chance.
Yeah, one man's loss is another man's gain. So hopefully we'll look forward to those two grabbing the nettle with both hands and seeing what they can do after sort of late entries as call-up replacements off the subs bench. So good luck to Mike and Gordon. Commiserations to Charles and Juan, but I'm sure we'll see them back at some point another time. Josh, big news breaking from PDC headquarters this week. Noticed that went out on social media about the prize money.
Indeed, yeah. The new PDC chairman, Eddie Hearn, announced that the prize money on the PDC circuit next year will smash through the £15 million barrier, which is an increase of over £2 million on the previous prize fund. So a huge statement of intent from the PDC. The Premier League will now increase to a £1 million prize fund. The World will stay the same for now, but the World Grand Prix, the Grand Slam and the Players' Championship finals will also benefit from boosted prize funds. And also the Players' Championship events are going to be worth £100,000 each next year. So 30 events worth £100,000 each.
Wow.
Remarkable.
And of course, Josh, these events and the prize money associated with these events, that can't happen unless there's significant interest in darts, you know, whether that's through sponsorship, whether that's from ticket sales, merchandise. And, you know, we know that darts is in a fairly healthy position at the moment. It's been a game that's continued to grow and grow and grow. And something that disappoints me a little bit is when, you know, you referred earlier to the conversation that's been had recently about Fallon possibly being in the Premier League, and you're always going to get that argument about, you know, whether she does or doesn't have a tour card, whether she does or doesn't deserve it, whether it is or it isn't an invitational event or a non-ranking event, and, you know, this and that. But it's things like this, isn't it? It is the innovation of a competition like the Premier League. It is the innovation of the PDC and Sky to have forward thinking and include, you know, a well-known popular female darts player who's going to attract new eyes on the product. It is all these new innovations, isn't it, that puts more eyes on the product, more money into the game, and ultimately more prize money in the players' pockets, isn't it?
100%. I mean, the Premier League, for example, of course it's a prestigious event for the players because you've got some of the best players in the world to win it, and it's over 16 or 17 weeks. It's such a tough tournament to win, but it's an exhibition event. It's a showpiece event for, you know, not just darts fans, but to try and attract new audiences. The same with the World Series of Darts that goes to Australia, to America, to Asia. It's about trying to expand the game globally. And Fallon has been a huge part of that and will continue to be so, I'm sure. And I think Eddie Hearn was speaking to Sky over the last week, and he was talking about trying to expand the women's game and have a women's worlds in the future within the PDC. We've seen it in the BDO before, haven't we? And also looking to try and take the Premier League to New York. That'll be I wouldn't mind going to New York for a week for the Premier League. That'd be a cushy gig, wouldn't it? So yeah, so huge statement from the PDC, huge commitment to the growing nature of this sport, and it's really exciting times for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, on the subject of prize money, bring us news about Selco, one of PDC's big sponsors, and what they're offering throughout the world.
Yes, very exciting offer here from Selco. We know now that players don't get prize money for hitting a 9 darter.
Boo! I hate this. I hate the fact that there's no... Listen, even if it's not a cheque for £50,000, I understand that they are more common because, you know, the standard is forever going through the roof and getting better and better and better. I get that. And back in the day, 15, 20 years ago, it was a bit more of a rarity. But... Just that old tradition of offering a prize for someone even if it's just a magnum of champagne, Josh, do you know what I mean? I just love that carrot, the gesture. But it's nice to see Selco bringing it back. But as you say, it's going to be in a slightly different way this time.
It is, yeah, because it's got to be one player hitting 2 9-darters at the same tournament. So it's a massive ask. I mean, the closest we've come is Michael van Gerwen.
Yeah.
And he almost hit back-to-back, didn't he, against James Wade? Way back, I think it was 2013 World Championship. But, I mean, we've not seen any player do this before, hit 2 9-darters in the same tournament. But there's a chance for the likes of a Gerwyn Price, a Peter Wright, and Michael van Gerwen. If they get to the final, you've got 6 or 7 games there to potentially have a crack at the two. But it's unlikely. But what a moment that would be, and I'm sure there'll be a few worried people at Selco if one of the big guns hits one early on.
I'm sure they can afford it. Okay, so we look forward to someone hitting that double 9-darter during the tournament and hopefully scooping that £100,000 prize. Josh, just briefly to finish us off the news section, let's move away from the PDC. Talk to me about what's taking place at the Lakeside once the PDC event is finished.
Yeah, exciting news coming out of the WDF, the World Darts Federation. They're going to hold their inaugural World Championship from January the 1st to the 9th at the iconic Lakeside. So we saw the BDO move away from Lakeside for the final staging, I think in 2020.
Yeah.
We're back now in one of the traditional hotbeds of darts, and it's going to be a fantastic occasion. Some top players in there as well. We've got the 3-time BDO World Champion Martin Adams. He's the oldest player in the field at the age of 65. He's got Jared Cole, a really, really talented 21-year-old who's been playing some cracking darts online. Luke Littler making his debut at the age of 14. He's a number 8 seed. Wayne Warren, 2020 BDO World Champion, the number 3 seed. He's there as well. We've got Francis Thibault Trucol, who's been playing some really, really good darts. We've also got the number 1 seed, Brian Roman. So we've got some real quality. Richard Veenstra, Ross Montgomery. A lot of established names from the BDO. Cameron Menzies is another one to watch as well. So that's going to be taking place from the 1st to the 9th. So a slight overlap from the end of the PDC World Championship. We've also got the women's competition as well, where Dita Hedman, the number 1 seed, will look to get her first World Championship title. Now, Dita's won over 200 ranking titles, but the worlds have been elusive for her so far. So I think we'd all love to see Dita win the big one. She really does deserve it. We've got a very, very exciting field. And Anastasia Dobromislova, number 2 seed, a 3-time winner of the Women's World Championship. Got Bo Greaves, a really, really talented teenager. Mikuru Suzuki is unseeded this year, but she's a 2-time BDO World Champion.
Yep.
We've got the likes of Lorraine Winstanley, a former major winner. Eileen de Graaf got to the semi-finals here. But no Fallon Sherrock in the women's draw.
Yeah, talk to me about that. Why not?
Well, she was invited. She earned her spot in the qualification system, but she's opted not to accept the invitation to compete. So there's a lot of speculation about it. Partly, some of it is due to the fact that there could be an overlap in terms of qualifying school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know if Fallon needs to win 2 or 3 games at Ali Pali to get a tour card, which is a big ask. So she'll be looking to get a PDC tour card at Q School if not. So there is that as a possibility. Maybe it's the fact that she doesn't want to kind of harm her brand, if you like. Because, you know, if we're talking about Fallon as being one of the most exciting players in the world and the best female player, and that's still up for debate because we haven't really mentioned Lisa Ashby, who's going to be in the PDC World Championship, but Lisa's a 4-time Women's World Champion. But Fallon will be expected to win this at the canter if she was going to be in it. So maybe she didn't want to sort of damage her brand, if you like, and risk an exit in this tournament. But it is a shame because the inaugural WDF World Championship, it's going to be a historic event. And what a chance for Fallon to write her name into history because she's achieved so much in a relatively short career, but she's yet to win a women's world title. And I think you want to be known, whatever you achieve in the sport, when you retire, a lot of people will say, well, how many world titles did you win? And this is a real chance for Fallon to try and win the World Championship. And you want to see the best players in the world competing in the biggest tournaments in the world. So I would have liked Fallon to compete. I'd have loved to have seen her here, but I'm sure her and her management have got their reasons.
Yeah, I mean, far be it from me, you know, Ugly Joe sits on the sofa making decisions and calls about what the darts player should and shouldn't be doing. But I share your disappointment a little bit, Josh. I don't think she'll ever have a better chance to put the words World Champion after her name. I know it's a new incarnation of the World Championship at Lakeside, but it's a World Championship nonetheless against a very competitive field. I know you mentioned Q School, and I've also heard Josh talk of a possible exhibition that might be taking place around that time as well that she might or might not be involved in. But I don't know, I just can't help but feel if you want to make the break and try your luck more and more with the PDC and Q School, I think that's fine. She has proved herself to be that level of player now from the tournaments that she has entered and the media interest that she generates. But I would have loved to have sort of seen her sign off from the amateur game, if you like, with a final crack at a World Championship. And what better place, Josh, than the Lakeside?
Exactly, you know, one of the homes of world darts. And as you said, it's a really, really high quality field. but you would have made her a comprehensive favourite to win that. We saw her at the PDC Women's Series. It was her and Lisa Ashton really dominating. I think she won 6 of the events. Lisa won 5, and Mikuru picked up the final one, where Fallon had withdrawn from that. So Fallon would have been a real big favourite, and I think it's a missed opportunity for her. But again, I'm sure she's got her reasons. I've also heard about the exhibition, but I'm not sure that's confirmed yet. But she has played in it a couple of years ago, didn't she, with Luca Toni?
Oh, you remember it now?
Yeah, I wanted just to mention that, just to show if Neil's listening, I remember it now. I'm not going to forget it next time.
Okay, yeah, and Josh as well, you know, the Lakeside, as you mentioned, you know, one of the most historical darting venues in the country. It's great for us to see darts back at the Lakeside. I know they do host the odd tournament. I think one of the final qualifiers did take place
at
the
right, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, a week ago now, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a few people on social media saying it was nice to be back at the Lakeside, and they could say they'd played darts at the Lakeside even if they hadn't qualified for it. But is there I'm assuming there's a TV deal in place for that tournament, do we know?
I believe it's on Eurosport.
Okay, all right, good. So yeah, we'll be able
to see it live. Yeah,
excellent stuff. And Josh, not on the itinerary, but just on the subject of World Championships, because this is our World Championship special. Also in January, Josh, a tournament that's sort of been put to the back of everyone's mind amongst the talk of the PDC and the WDF. We've got the World Seniors Championship coming up, not too far away on the horizon either.
Not at all. We're going to have 3 World Darts Champions this year, which is really exciting. But this will be great. It'll be like a trip down memory lane, won't it? It's going to be broadcast on the BBC, I believe.
Yeah, I noticed someone mentioned that to me the other day. That's good.
So that's a real showcase event, really, isn't it? I think we've seen the Champions League of Darts on the BBC and the PDC over recent years.
Yeah.
And of course, many years ago, we had the Lakeside, the BDO World Championship on the BBC. But this is going to be great. Headlined, of course, by a bloke called Phil Taylor. I think we've heard of him, haven't we? The 16-time
once or twice.
But so much quality in the field. You know, you've got former legends of the game, Bob Anderson, John Lowe. I don't want to forget people. I'm looking down the list.
I've got the odds in front of me, Josh. Brought to us by Skybet, who are offering outright tournament odds on that. You're right, Phil Taylor is top of the shop, as you would probably expect, at 6-4. I don't know if you've got it in front of you, but who do you reckon comes in second favourite?
I'm just looking down the list now. Although he's not a world champ, I'd say Robert Thornton's got to be up there. Is that right?
Robert Thornton is third favourite. Well, joint second favourite, actually, at 7-1.
Okay. Richie Burnett?
Richie Burnett fourth at 8-1.
Who am I missing?
A name that I wasn't expecting, to be honest.
It's not Kevin Burness.
It is Kevin Burness. Kevin Burness, 7-1, joint second favourite with Robert Thornton.
Yeah, Kevin's not a household name by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
We've seen him at Ali Pali a few years ago, beat Paul Nicholson and had a good game against Gary Anderson. But I think anyone who's watched the online Darts Live League will have seen him play countless games over the last 12 months and play really, really well. But Kevin, because he hasn't won any majors before, he wasn't invited to this event. But he was one of 2 qualifiers to come through a couple of months ago now. So that's how he secured his place in the event. So he's in really good form coming into it. But yeah, so much quality. Like I say, you've got Keith Della there, the 1983 winner. Wolfie, he's still playing quality darts.
Yeah, Wolfie's in there.
He could win 2 World Darts in a month, John.
He could. And also, Josh, a couple of ladies. You've already mentioned one of the favourites to take the WDF title, Dita Hedman. She's in there quoted at 150-1. But also nice to see Trina Gulliver included as well.
Yeah, the 10-time women's world champ. We saw her in the PDC Women's Series as well, and she was playing some really excellent stuff. And it's great to see Trina, after her health issues over the last 18 months, back playing darts and back looking healthy again. So that's really good. And I'm also really loving the chance to be able to watch John Park play again on the hockey.
Yeah.
3-time world champ, Darth Maple, one of my favourite players, my dad's favourite player of all time. So looking forward to seeing John. We've got Kevin Painter, Terry Jenkins, a 9-time major finalist in the PDC. Peter Manley, he'll be walking out to Amarillo, won't he? I'm sure.
Do you know who I'm looking forward to seeing? Even if the quality of the darts isn't there, you can guarantee a little bit of a good walk on, maybe a bit of controversy on stage, maybe a bit of giving it backwards and forwards to the fans. I can't wait to see Ted Hankey back on stage.
He was always box office at the Grand Slam, wasn't he? I think he had a game against Phil Taylor that he won, and he just relishes the role of pantomime villain, Ted. And he's a quality dart player as well, a 2-time World Championship winner. He won one of his world titles with a 170 finish, so it doesn't get any better than that. So, yeah, that'd be great to see Ted up there. John Lowe, as I've mentioned, and Bob Anderson. Will we have Bob walking out with his horse again?
Yeah. Oh, famous that was. But I think Bob's one of Neil's favourite former darts players, isn't he, Bob Anderson?
I think he's up there. And to be fair with Bob, I know he's one of the older players in the field, but he's still playing some really, really sharp darts from what I've been told on the exhibition circuit. I know we haven't been seeing as many exhibitions due to COVID, but he can still throw a mean dart, can Bob?
Yeah, so there we go. The World Senior Darts Championship to look forward to as well. Josh, do you know where that's coming from? What the venue is for that?
It's going to be held, John, at the iconic Circus Tavern in Purfleet.
Ah, there we go. Another.
The former PDC, we used to hold the PDC World Championship there.
Yeah, it's not all it used to hold either, but we'll circumnavigate around that conversation.
Yes, very, very wise decision, John.
Okay, Josh, any more news stories for us?
No, I think that's all for this episode, John.
In the news. This is Danny Baggish, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, we are coming to the end of the show, but before we do, as always, we're going to finish with our Q&A section. This is Josh's Twitter Chatter. Okay, your questions have been coming in via social media. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. First question is going to come in from friend of the show, Jenny Merton. Now, I've noticed a couple of these questions are quite Raymond van Barneveld heavy. Jenny did throw in a little side question about Raymond, but we'll come on to that in another question in a moment. She said she'd love to know from Steve Beaton, what is it that still drives him to take to the oche? A great and lengthy career. Is it still the pure love of the game that keeps your tips sharper? Now, from your interview with him, Josh, and having a chat with him, I'm sure you can speak on his great and lengthy career as mentioned by Jenny.
Yeah, I asked Steve quite early on in the interview what was the secret behind his longevity, because as we mentioned, 31 World Championships, it almost defies belief. But Steve still loves the game. He loves interacting with the crowd. He loves the exhibitions. He loves playing on the big stage. But we also talked about his desire to win another major, and that's what's driving him on, because he's not just there to make up the numbers. I think if Steve felt he couldn't compete at the top level anymore, then I think he'd pack it up and just focus on the exhibitions, because he could still play on the exhibition circuit, because he could play at the World Senior Championships, couldn't he? Quite easily.
Yeah.
So I think Steve still believes he's got another big title in him. And I think until he doesn't believe that anymore, I see no reason why he's going to step aside from the PDC circuit.
Okay, well, there you go, Jenny. Hopefully that's answered your question. Right then, Paul Hoy. Another friend of the show. Only one thing he wants to know, and that is how the main man, Raymond van Barneveld, is going to fare this year at the World Championships. Josh, if I could ask you to try and be as objective as possible without letting your love for the great Dutchman to cloud your judgment. Take it away, my friend.
Well, I'm in a bit of a conundrum here, John, because if I tip him to do anything notable, he's going to be condemned to a first round exit.
Yeah, you don't want the curse of Josh on you. But let's stop that. And go on. It's a big occasion for Barney. We know he's got the history behind him. He's got the fans behind him. But it's going to be difficult for him, isn't it? Let's make no bones about it.
It is, because before, say, 3 years ago, he had a wonderful record at Ali Pali. Although he hadn't won it at Ali Pali, he'd had some famous wins over Van Gerwen, Taylor, Lewis. He got to countless semi-finals, but his last 2 games there, he's lost both of them to Darius Labanauskas and most recently Darren Young. So he'll be wanting to kind of get a bit of redemption and banish those demons. I think his first game against Ilagan, I would expect him to win, but it could be nervy. He needs to start well. If he goes 1-0 down, it could be panic stations.
Yeah,
but he's playing well. He's had a good year in terms of performances on tour, so I'd expect him to win that. Rob Cross, if I'm being honest, Rob will start as favourite. I think it will go all the way. I really, really do. But I will say, I think Barney wins his first game, and I think the winner of Rob Cross and Barney will reach the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just enjoy it, you know.
Yes, of course, that's the main thing.
We thought that we would never see it again. We thought Barney was done and dusted when he retired, and that, you know, those days were over. For him to come back, I remember when he was, you know, in that tournament trying to get his tour card back, Josh, and we were WhatsApping each other backwards and forwards, and, you know, could it possibly happen? Is this going to be the comeback? And we've come so far from those days, you know, from is he going to actually make it back to he's made it back, and now he's on the grandest stage of them all. So my advice to him, to you, to fans of Barney is just enjoy it. You know, don't put any pressure on him. Don't put any pressure on yourself either, Barney. Just enjoy being back up in front of those people who love and adore you. And we just want to enjoy it. Listen, if he wins a couple of games on the way, fantastic. If he wins a few games, brilliant. If he goes all the way, well, it's dreamland, isn't it? But
of course.
I think we just take it for what it is and enjoy seeing the great man back up on the stage where he belongs. We got one more question, Josh. Again, friend of the show and former co-host and one of your colleagues, I believe, Raz. Great to hear from you, Raz. Hope you're keeping well, buddy. We'll have to get Raz back on the show again soon, Josh. I particularly enjoyed Raz's appearance, mainly because he rather sportingly joined in with trying to stitch you up all the time.
Well, no, he's kind of leading the way. He's cracking the whip for me at Ali Pally. He's going to be there with me most of the time. So
good.
I better be kind to him.
Well, big shout out to Raz. He's asked, how far will AD Lewis go this year? Josh, what do you reckon?
Raz is a big AD Lewis fan.
Mm-hmm.
He has a bet on him every single year. Well, for the last 5 years, and every single year he's lost his money.
I was going to say, he's lost a lot of money in the last 5 years then.
He has, yeah. Listen, Adrian is a bit of an enigma, isn't he? Because we know how good he can be. We've seen flashes over the last 12 months. I don't see him going past the second round, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Campbell is a banana skin. He could easily lose that game to Matt Campbell. I would back him to have just about enough. I think his scoring power. I think if Adrian turns up and plays well, he'll win. Gary's vulnerable, Gary Anderson. But if it came down to it, I still think he'd have a little bit too much for Adrian. So I think I don't see Adrian going beyond the second round. So congratulations, Adrian, on winning the tournament.
Well, AD ran Peter Wright very, very close in a highly controversial game not too long ago, Josh.
He did, and he should have won that game because he was 3-0 up, and I think he averaged 89. I think, and he lost the game. But before that, in the opening game, he played Kim Hybricks, and he had some huge ton plus finishes. Played with real emotion. That's when Adrian's at his best.
Yeah. When
he's fired up, when he's enjoying the game, and he's got a point to prove, and he interacts with the crowd, and that was great to see. But the Peter Wright, those shenanigans were a little bit silly, weren't they? But there'll be none of that against Gary Anderson because him and Gary are really, really good friends, and on the Pro Tour they often sit together. They're at the same sort of table. I've seen that firsthand. So they're good pals, great players. They'll be rivals on the hockey if they do meet, but it'll be played in a good spirit, I'm sure.
Okay, well, there you go, Raz. I think the general advice from Josh this year is save your money, but
but buy me a drink at Ali Pally instead.
Buy Josh a drink at Ali Pally instead.
Not alcoholic. We're not allowed to drink alcohol.
Absolutely, just a soft one.
Diet Coke, maybe.
There we go, Diet Coke. Okay, Josh, any more questions?
No, that's all for this week, John.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Adrian Lewis, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry podcast.
Well, there we go. That neatly brings us on to the end of the show. Josh, our World Championship preview for episode 11 of The Bounce Out.
Yeah, enjoyed that one, John. It was a really, really interesting podcast. Great to hear from Steve Beaton and good to chat all things darts now. The countdown continues. We're nearly there.
Yeah, not long to go. A couple of days and we'll be in the thick of the action. Josh, when is the final?
The final is January the 3rd.
January the 3rd. So, 3 days into the new year, and we will be crowning a new world champion. Right then, Josh, I think that pretty much sums it all up for us. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the show. Thanks for taking the time to download it. Don't forget to check us out at Josh's Dartistry on Twitter, or check us out on Facebook. Log on to Josh's website. All the details available there for you online. And, give us a shout out, give us a follow. Josh, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks, John. Always a pleasure, mate.
And let's look forward to the World Championship. Safe journey. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.